So for all of you who have been at home for the past couple of weeks, hopefully you've been able to watch the recordings. I'm going to show you in the course where they are. Good afternoon again. It's ENG4U local. That's the code for it. It's at 4:30 Toronto time. And today we're going to do a couple of things. So first, obviously, I just wanted to test the Slido. For those of you at home watching, you can copy and paste, I believe, the chat message with the Slido and add your information. I'll leave the Slido open for a week. It's not a big deal. It's just a question about today to make sure it works. And then we're going to have a presentation whenever Cheryl decides she wants to do her presentation at the end or at the beginning. It's up to her. We'll chat privately in a second, Cheryl. And then I'm going to introduce another activity to you today. We're going to finish, I know that everybody's in different units, but we've been working on poetry these past couple of weeks. So we're going to do Unit 2, Activity 15. And the activity is based on a reflection or a way to move out of the unit. It's not an assessment of activity, it's a for as assessment. So that particular activity is you reflecting on the whole poetry unit, but we're going to do an activity to help you prepare for that. Now, I know some of you might be in Unit 1, that's okay. You're going to have to do Unit 2 eventually. I know some of you are in Unit 2, that's great. You'll move into this activity with no problems. It's the last activity of the unit. If you are on Unit 3 or 4, or if you're moving towards the exam, that's okay too, because on the exam, you're going to have to write a poetry section anyway. You're going to be analyzing a free form poem or a sight poem that you've never seen before. So all of the information that we're doing today is in review for the exam anyway. And also we're going to take a look at the previous Padlets. And for those of you who weren't here or watching the videos at home, you can do the Padlets, the previous ones, plus today's, when I give you a work period. It's about 20 to 5 right now, Toronto time. I'm going to discuss the activity U2A15, and then I'm going to let you go and work on the Padlets for about 20 minutes. While you're working on the Padlets, I'm going to be contacting some of you through private chat. Like last week, with the students that came last week, I private chatted with them about their learning skills and their rubrics, just to see where you think you are. And the reason I'm doing it private chatting is to get you used to vocabulary used for the learning skills, because eventually we need to have a full class or at least half a class where we can talk about them and discuss them with each other, right? And then Cheryl's presentation is going to take us home, I think. I'll chat with Cheryl and we'll figure it out from there. Okay, now, the other thing too is with all of you signing in, there might be issues with the internet, and I understand this. I've had my own Zoom meetings where people get kicked out. So if your internet is not very strong, or if you're residing in China overseas right now and your internet is choppy, you can turn off your webcam after I do the explanation of the activity, and then you're working on your Padlet. When we come back and do the presentation, Cheryl's presentation, then you can turn your webcam back on just so I can see your faces, right? When you enter the course, if this is your first day, when you enter the course, you should always change your name to your registered name so I can check the attendance, right? I know other professors or instructors like you to use your nicknames or whatever, but for this English class, please sign in with your registered name so I can double check my attendance. And you should always have your webcam on so I can verify that it's your face, right? And as much as possible, you should have your webcam on, but again, I said, if there's internet problems, you can turn it off, right? Especially during the work period. When you're working on your Padlets, it's not important unless I ask you to turn it on, which I probably won't. But also because I'll be talking and chatting with some of you individually, make sure your chat room, you check the chat room or your notifications come up, make sure that you're there, right? Because if this happened before with other students, if I'm chatting and you're not answering my questions, then I remove you from attendance. You're not in attendance, right? That just shows me that you've either disappeared or you're not with us. And the way the class works, for those of you that are here today or even watching the videos, 1 hour, we're here together live, you're doing stuff. And then the other 30 minutes, 35 to 45 minutes, I'm just here on Zoom doing individual consultation, right? So some of you were here with me last week, talking about your projects and stuff. So this is a good opportunity for you to meet me after class if you have questions about your assignments, right? Everything I've marked, I've uploaded. So let's just get off my face. We can take a look at the course. Nope. Yes, here. Everything I've marked is uploaded to the course, right? And as I mentioned, you should already have access to the recorded videos. You either have this little arrow on the side, just hide this window here. You have this arrow on the side that opens up all the latest announcements from me. So there are live notes or live classes, right? Or you can click on News Forum here. And if I click on last week, you should have access to the link for the Zoom session, plus a passcode. Sorry, the passcode's at the end. You have to enter the passcode. And this is access to last week's Padlet, right? When we were talking about choosing the best poem according to you. Okay, now let's talk about today's task first. Cheryl, I'll chat with you during when I assign the Padlets, okay? We'll figure it out. We'll figure out a schedule later. Okay. So we're skimming down to U2A12 here. Nope. All right, so this is kind of the wrap up and personal reflection. This activity you have to complete on your own, but the activity we're doing live today is a preview or a kind of a way to get into thinking about it. Again, you're clicking on all these links for learning goals and success criteria, right? Yes, I told you already, this is an assessment as and for the actual assignment. So this assignment, the way out of this particular unit is for you to share 3 personal connections you can make to the poetry information you learned this unit. 2 weeks ago, we looked at poetic devices. I'll show you the Padlet in a second. Last week, we looked at different kinds of poetry. So we talked about poetry as related to your, the poets that you liked. Some of you chose hip hop poetry in that particular, I think it was U2A14 was the unit activity that we did last week. And so you could choose different kinds of poetry. I didn't mind some of you choosing, the traditional or European poets. That's fine. But, to break out of that, I also built in a link for modern poetry. There's some indigenous poets that we looked at that you could look at. But anyway, the way out of this is this assignment here. And this task is for you to compose a 300-word reflection on this question, right? The 3 personal connections you can make to the poetry unit. Now, let's take a look at the Padlet from 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, we looked at this poem by the Indigenous author from Canada, Chief Dan George. And he wrote here this poem called My Heart Soars, right? And as a way out of this, as the Padlet for this unit, I just need to hide your faces there. Okay. As the Padlet for this, you analyze different poetic devices, right? This was from, I believe, U2, I go back to topic 3. This was U2, here, U2A4. So that Padlet was based on U2A4. So the students that were here 2 weeks ago, this is what you created based on this poem, right? I'll give you these links in a second so you can look at this again, right? Because U2A15 is about some of the connections you made. Last week, you looked at your own choice of the best poem, and this was U2A14. If you go back to the course, nope, not the Dropbox. This activity asked you to write an essay based on your choice of poems. So last week's activity, what we did was we went through the different kinds of examples, and this here, U214, the actual activity description, gives you links to poems available that are open to you, available. Some hip hop poems, some of you chose hip hop poems last week. Representative poetry, these are the traditional ones that I would like you maybe not to look at, but you know, I can't fault you for liking the older poets. But anyway, you know, the other thing too I encouraged last week is that if you have your own poets from your culture, you can include them too. I've had students write this assignment, if you haven't done it yet, U2A14, where they've chosen Chinese poetry, and they've also sent me the translation. That's fine, you know, as long as you're interested in the poem and it's you're analyzing it using your essay skills, then the poem itself is not really essential, you know, as long as you like it and you're doing it with